Last week, I was a guest on JJ Zacharyason's Becoming a Best Ball Bro podcast, which, if you haven't checked it out, highly recommend checking out that podcast. JJ does awesome work. But this year, his whole series is focused on DraftKings Best Ball. So we talked a little bit about, PPR scoring, 20 rounds versus 18. And one of the questions that JJ asked me about was what to do at the running back position, what I like to do at the running back position, and specifically, do I think zero RB is extra viable on DraftKings? And yeah, we talked about it at length. That I do really think that zero RB, at least in theory, should work really well on DraftKings with the 20 rounds, and given the depth of this year's running back rookie class as opposed to the wide receiver class being fairly thin, all things suggest that this should be a really strong year to attack zero RB on DraftKings. However, I hadn't actually done it at the point that JJ and I had talked. I'd done some hero RB, anchor RB, but had not tried a true zero RB draft yet. So I decided today I did two drafts, two zero RB drafts. I actually did them simultaneously, and kind of wanted to see what that would look like. So I want to do a little video here just to look at those zero RB teams that I drafted today. And I really went out of my way to make sure that they were both fully zero RB. And I'm just going to take a brief look at them. Not going to go really in depth on the picks. I just want to talk about them a little bit. So I had in this first one, I had the 107. And as I queued this up, I realized I felt really strongly about who the top 6 picks are. I don't feel as strongly as at the 7th pick. I feel like these top 6 really are a tier to me. I don't know if other people feel that way, but I kind of felt like those were the 6 that I really wanted. And if it didn't get one of those, it was kind of a toss up. Do I want Puka? Do I want to go with Ashton Genty, McCaffrey, Amon-Ra, Neighbors? Several good options here. But anyway, I went with Puka. Again, I'm trying to do zero RB in these drafts in the first round. Second round, I really would have liked, Brian Thomas obviously would have been a phenomenal pick at the 2.6. I would have liked Drake London for the week 17 correlation with Puka Nacua, but neither of them made it back to me. So I went with Lad McConkey. I think a pretty strong PPR scoring option. Comes back around to me, and I got JSN, who I have not been as high on him as some. He seems to be pretty polarizing. But at pick 31, I thought, strong enough. Like I really wanted Devonta Adams to fall to me. Did not get it, but I think JSN could end up being a smash this year. So I wasn't disappointed to get JSN in the 3rd round. Comes back around to me, and I took George Kittle. I thought about doing Travis Hunter here. Could have done DJ Moore, but I really like George Kittle this year in that San Francisco offense, where I think he might get a little more work than years past, and he's just been a great pick for several years in a row now. So I go with Kittle, my first non-wide receiver. In the 5th round, I go back to wide receiver with George Pickens in that potentially high-powered Dallas passing game, where the running game not as strong. So I think Pickens could be a really strong pick here. In the 6th round, I went with Jawan Jennings, who I'm pretty high on this year. Again, I think a pretty polarizing pick, a player that we don't really know. Is he going to continue the breakout that he had last year? It was kind of a strange late career breakout for Jawan Jennings relative to when receivers usually break out, but also he looked really good and looked like he might be the top option, or one of the top options in that San Francisco passing game. Added him to the Kittle stack for San Francisco. Finally, in round 7, I took a running back. I went with DeAndre Swift. I was really hoping it was going to be Quinshon Judkins. He went one pick before me, and I felt like that kind of, to me, this is sort of a tier. And again, maybe I'm wrong about that, but DeAndre Swift, I was not super excited about, just because I'm not sure if he's going to hold on to that RB1 role. But I decided to break that. It was between Swift and Pollard mostly for me, and I ended up going with Swift in this one. Could have gone either way. The next round, I added on to that San Francisco stack with Brandon Ayuk. The nice thing is the drafter before me took Ricky Pearsall. So it was pretty likely if I went with Brandon Ayuk that I was going to be able to take Brock Purdy with my next pick, because the Pearsall drafter is on the other side of the board from me. Of course, I believe the McCaffrey drafter also on this side of the board. So it's pretty likely I'd be able to get Purdy at 103, and that is what happened. My first quarterback taken at 103. Now, in these DraftKings drafts, if you haven't done a lot of them, what you'll learn is there can be huge QB runs. Like you can really be boxed out at quarterback if you're not paying attention. So I went with quarterback again in the 10th round with Dak Prescott. So now I've got double quarterback. Could be done at this point with Purdy and Prescott, and that was kind of my plan. I thought I'd probably be done at that point. So, but still, I have we're through 10 rounds now. I have just one running back. Now this is where 20 rounds versus 18 very important because I want to really load up on some of the more fragile running back options. And I start to do that. Took Bashal Tutin at 127, which I think is a pretty strong zero RB target. We don't really know how things are going to break out there in Jacksonville, but Tutin could end up having pretty big role there. So I feel okay about him as my RB2, just given the strength that I theoretically at least have in the other positions. Now, I say I want to start hammering running backs, but I went back to Luther Burden as I believe, my sixth, maybe my seventh wide receiver here. He was just kind of a falling value there. Felt pretty good to get him uh, in the 12th round. Finally, I get my second tight end here, and now I have George Kittle and Kyle Pitts. I was pretty confident that I would be done at tight end here, which kind of a fragile tight end room. Really do need Kyle Pitts to perform pretty well here, but I was there are several running backs in this range that I really wanted. I was Algier, I thought was going to make it to me, and got sniped on him. The one pick before me, I do like Ray Davis, Austin Eckler, Isaac Rendo. Like this is a range of running backs that I really like, and they all just went before my pick. And I could have gone Tank Bigsby, but I already have Tootin kind of making that bet already, so I went with Pitts and just decided to see what would come back to me. So it comes back to my turn in the 14th round. I got Roshan Johnson, who I think is a pretty strong zero RB target this year. The next round, I go with Will Shipley. Again, I think he's probably the backup to Saquon Barkley, the next man up if anything were to happen to Barkley. So I'm hoping that he can take a big step this year and of course, just have that contingent upside if anything does happen to Barkley. Um, Finally, the next round, again, was not planning on taking another quarterback, but I did have Calvin. No, do I have? Okay, I made a mistake here. I thought that I had Calvin Ridley. I do not have Calvin Ridley on my team, but I believe he was the suggested pick for me in the sidekick. Just such a strong value at 186. Yeah, this was a blunder on my part. This is the issue with doing two drafts at once. I thought I already had a Tennessee Titan on here. I thought I had Calvin Ridley on this team, and I did not. So that was a mistake on my part, but doesn't really hurt when you get this kind of a value on a player where he's 30 picks past ADP and already pretty decent value where he goes. Even though I didn't have a Titans player on here, I actually don't feel that bad about the pick anyway when he's falling this far, and I hadn't spent a ton of draft capital on quarterbacks, so I feel okay about that one. DJ Giddens in the 17th round. Again, the likely RB2 might be the RB3 with Khalil Herbert there, but pretty good chance of being the RB2 on the Colts. So just have some nice contingent upside. Jarquez Hunter, again, similarly fighting for the RB2 role there. We don't really know what he's going to be, but a different back than the other two on the Rams, the most explosive of the group. So could carve out a pretty big role there. We don't really know. It's fragile. That's what you're going to get in these late rounds. But then I bring in a little bit of I don't know if he's safer, but Miles Sanders, we don't really know how that Cowboys backfield is going to break down. So I just have a ton of bets on different running backs who are in uncertain rooms who might be able to take on bigger roles as the season goes on. But because we have 20 rounds, I have several of these guys. And then finally, Trevor Etienne on the Panthers, another back in an uncertain backfield. Most likely the RB3 there, but could certainly earn himself a role throughout the year. So that's how the first draft went. Ended up going with a what is this, a 3-8-7-2 build, and that's kind of intentional. The plan all along was I'm going to load up on running backs. 8 generally is going to be probably the most running backs I'm going to take on a team, but that is what I did on this team. I didn't take a running back until the 7th round. Ended up taking my first in the at that point with DeAndre Swift, and ended up taking 8 total running backs with a lot of fragility among them. Like most of them are fairly fragile. At the same time, I have a big enough, group of running backs there that have potential that I'm hopeful that if things break the right way, my running back room will look okay. And in theory, at least, I should be pretty strong at the other positions. I will, after I go, I'm going to go over my second draft. Again, I did these simultaneously, hence the mistake thinking that I had Calvin Ridley. So I'm going to go over my second one here, and then I'll take a look at both teams, how they ended up after I go through this second draft. So this is the other draft, excuse me, that I did at the same time as the other one. This one, I landed the 12th pick, which I really like, actually. These kind of late round picks in general this year are, I think, is my favorite part of the draft to draft from. But I landed the 112, and the two who fall to me, actually, there's three really that I'm considering here, and those are Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, and Brian Thomas. I went with Neighbors and Bowers for that week 17 correlation. Could have just easily gone with Brian Thomas with one of these picks, though. I will note, and then finally, so those are the first two rounds for me. The third round, JSN makes it all the way back to 36. So a pretty good value there for me on JSN. And then Tet McMillan at 37 was a slight reach, but also I now have that week 17 correlation as well with JSN and Tet McMillan. I will note that I look at the team before me in this one. Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr., Devonta Adams. That feels like a better first three picks. So I almost think I should have gone with Brian Thomas Jr. here, just because I feel like wide receiver does get weak pretty quickly if you divert too much. I really like this is a really strong starting three in my opinion. But I got Brock Bowers. Can't really be too upset about my starting three either. And I feel like through 4 rounds, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, JSN, Tet McMillan, fairly strong start to the draft. I add on a couple more wide receivers, and here you see I got Jalen Waddle at pick 60. Feels pretty good. Still feels like he has some pretty big upside if he can stay healthy. Kelvin Ridley at 61 here, of course, sets up a late quarterback. Potentially a better offense with this rookie quarterback, the number one overall pick. So who knows? Kelvin Ridley, he's getting up there in age, but still might take a step above what he did last year in just a better offense. So those are my two at the 5-6 turn. Comes back around to me at the 7-8 turn. I go with Matthew Golden, and here I did get Tony Pollard. Now DeAndre Swift had already gone. Again, I think those two are kind of toss up for me, but feel pretty good about getting Tony Pollard at 85 overall. I mean, he was pretty good last year. We add him on to the stack with Calvin Ridley. All things I'm pretty happy to get Tony Pollard as my RB1 in the 8th round. In the 9th round, I go with Cam Scatterboo, which again, another player that people have very mixed feelings on Scatterboo. But I'm a Jordan Mason bull this year. He was already gone. Jalen Warren, really strong pick on DraftKings. He was already gone. Tyrone Tracy already gone. So just where it comes to me at 108, getting Cam Scatterbo, I didn't feel bad about it. I think he's in a split backfield where we don't really know what the role is going to be, but that's what you're going to get when you're not taking running backs early, when you wait till the 8th and 9th round. So got Tony Pollard there. Wait, 8th, yes, and 9th, just 2 rounds apart. At the 10:01, I took Jordan Love. So again, being conscious of my receivers, of my quarterbacks. Already had Matthew Golden, so we've got the stack worked out there. And you can see right after I take Jordan Love, Drake May goes, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, JJ McCarthy, a lot of quarterbacks going in succession, or in the next round, I guess not in succession. But a lot of quarterbacks go. And then I get around to the 11th round, and the sidekick was screaming at me that I should be taking a quarterback here. But all the quarterbacks that I had lined up for my team, I thought I could probably wait, just because it felt like a reach. And I felt like Ramondre Stevenson for this team where I only had 2 running backs. Ramondre Stevenson felt like one of the few remaining running backs who could have a pretty good role throughout the year, just like from the start. So I decided to just take the picks that I wanted. So I went with Ramondre Stevenson and Kyle Williams. Now one thing I didn't notice it at the time because I was doing 2 drafts at once. I did notice that Tucker Kraft went before me, but I promise these were not actually revenge picks. I noticed as I was looking at this after the fact that the person who took Tucker Kraft had Drake May, so this could have had the appearance of revenge. I'm not typically a very vengeful drafter. Occasionally, I can get irked and draft out of revenge. This was not one of those at all. Just trying to get, I thought Stevenson the best available running back, and then Kyle Williams to close out. I believe this is my final wide receiver. Just a pick that I like here at 133. Comes back around to me, and I go with Cam Ward. So again, I had Calvin Ridley on this team, and I took Cam Ward 30 picks ahead of where I got him on the other team. But I really needed a second quarterback here. After you see, I took these two. I did not take a quarterback, thinking that maybe I'll be able to get Bryce Young to come back to me. What one of the other players that I have set up, uh, Geno Smith, I could have had with Brock Bowers. So I had some quarterback outs. They both go, but I had so many quarterback outs, luckily, that I go with Cam Ward. And then Sam Darnold was not actually that near the top of the sidekick rankings, which sort of surprised me because I don't think he was going to make it back to me. But I think they thought the sidekick at least suggested that I was probably good with just Jordan Love and Cam Ward. I decided to go against it on this one, and I went with Sam Darnold. I kind of like the three quarterbacks on DraftKings, and as we review the teams, we'll see if maybe I don't know. I don't know if that was a mistake because there are after I took Sam Darnold, some of my favorite zero RB targets go. Isaac Orendo, I really love here. Tyler Algier goes. So those are a couple running backs. Rico Dowdle, even on Carolina, they might run a lot this year. So there are some really strong running back options that went in the next two rounds that I maybe could have gone here and just stuck with two quarterbacks. Let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments. I kind of feel mixed about whether I made the right decision there. Roshan Johnson, again, got really would have loved Roshan Johnson at this pick, at pick 180. Just a safer running back in the late rounds, who I think has should have a pretty good role this year, pass catching role, which is obviously helpful on a PPR site. Doesn't make it back, so I am taking flyers on Jalen Wright for the Dolphins. Who knows, might work into a bigger role this year. And then I go with Will Shipley again, just a running back that I'm targeting kind of in all formats this year. I'm not super in on Saquon at the second overall pick, so I'm kind of hopeful that Will Shipley can take on a bigger role one way or another this year. Really just contingent value. He's probably not going to have a ton of standalone value, but he's I think got pretty awesome contingent value. Could have gone. I mean, this some other really strong running back options late. Again, this is why I like doing zero RB on DraftKings, is because there are a lot of running backs that I look at and I think, I mean, J.K. Dobbins, several that I think are really strong picks late in drafts. Um, we go through a round, comes back to me, and Jarquez Hunter goes, Blake Corum goes. I go with Marshawn Lloyd at the 204, the 17-12 pick, and then DJ Giddens, again, running backs who uncertain situations, but could be good. Finally, for my 19th and 20th pick, so far I only have Brock Bowers. I decided to go with two tight ends here. I go with Jatavion Sanders and Harold Fannin, just shooting for some upside with those two. I think generally, though, I'm counting on Brock Bowers on this team. So there you go. Those are how the two drafts that I did went. I made a little spreadsheet here so we can kind of look at them in total. So the first one, again, I had Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott. Wait, is this the first one or the second one? Yes. Brock Purdy, and this is the first one. Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, and Cam Ward at quarterback. I think that's a pretty good quarterback room. Had to get there with volume. Didn't really take any of the elite quarterbacks, but I feel pretty good about that quarterback room. The running backs. So again, this is zero RB. So I know I'm kind of eating some volatility at running back. I get DeAndre Swift, Bashal Tutin, Roshan Johnson, Will Shipley, DJ Giddens, Jarquez Hunter, Miles Sanders, and Trevor Etienne. Now, if you look at what do I need to happen here in the beginning of the season, I need DeAndre Swift to maintain the role that he had last year. He's got Ben Johnson. Maybe the offense takes a step forward and Swift can actually be a pretty solid RB1. I actually have DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson on this one, so I've got a lot of just betting on the Bears offense, I guess, with those two. I don't do a ton of handcuffing my running backs, but I'm also open to doing so with Tootin in the middle there. And then I've got Will Shipley, who probably not really going to be doing much at the beginning of the year, more of a later round, make up some ground pick. DJ Giddens, similarly, Jarquez Hunter. I think all three of these are, I'm not really expecting a ton early in the year. Now I can be pleasantly surprised. Maybe they'll have bigger roles than I expect. Miles Sanders, I think, could have a bigger role. Could just be in a full-on committee early in the year. I don't expect him to be like a bell cow, but I've got Javonte Williams there, the rookie Jaden Blue. It's a pretty uncertain situation. I'm not that confident that Javonte Williams is the clear RB1 there. So I think Miles Sanders could be that second running back who's supporting me a little bit in the early going. If that's 10 fantasy points a game, I'd be pretty happy with that. I think for Miles Sanders, and then the occasional spike week maybe. But I get him pretty late, and then Trevor Etienne, another pick that I'm not expecting much from early on. So overall, I look at this running back room and I have volume there. I took 8 running backs. It's going to be pretty thin early on. I really need one of these other running backs to emerge fairly early, I think, to carry the running back room and give me some points there. But I do at least have volume. I have several opportunities for a running back to step into a bigger opportunity. At wide receiver, again, took wide receivers early. I got Puka Nakua, Lad McConkey, JSN, George Pickens, Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, and Luther Burden. Part of the reason I need to take Burden here is Ayuk going to miss the beginning of the season. But obviously, I spent a lot of draft capital at wide receiver. Again, not the best position on the board at the seventh pick, but I feel pretty good about these wide receivers. I did spend a lot of draft capital on them: Puka Nakua, Lad McConkey, JSN, George Pickens, Jawan Jennings, Brandon. Like this is a wide receiver group that I don't feel extremely safe with. This group, I don't feel like it's a smash necessarily, but I do think it's a potential smash wide receiver group, just because we don't really know what's JSN going to look like as the wide receiver one there with Sam Darnold. We don't know what that's going to look like exactly. George Pickens as a wide receiver two on the Cowboys. Who knows? Can Lad McConkey take a step forward? Is Puka going to stay healthy? But I feel pretty. And Jawan Jennings, kind of as questionable as anybody. Wide range of outcomes there. So I feel like I have a lot of wide receivers who have kind of a wide range of outcomes, but I feel like they all also, I would speculate that they're going to be on the pretty good range of outcomes. Like Puka Nakua, I think is just really good. As long as he stays healthy, he'll be awesome. I think Lad probably going to take a step forward in his second year. JSN, I think will look pretty good. He was already pretty good last year. Now he's the wide receiver one there. Pickens, I think just a better offense, better quarterback play. I think he's going to be good. Jawan Jennings already broke out last year. I think he's going to continue that breakout. So these are all players that not a lot of certainty here, but I think that there's potential for them to be very good. And then at tight end, it's a little bit thin for a zero RB team to just have George Kittle and Kyle Pitts. But we were taking these two at what, the 4, 5, 5, 6 kind of turns last year. So I got a little bit of value on Kyle Pitts. I guess I did reach a little bit for George Kittle, but I really like George Kittle this year. I think he might be a little bit less volatile this year, and he already last year had several better weeks. Like he was generally pretty good last year. He could be a bigger part of the offense this year with Debo Samuel gone. Who knows? I'm also making the bet on Jawan Jennings being a big part of the offense. So, but Ayuk going to miss the first half of the year. Debo's gone. I think Kittle, they could rely on him a bit more. So overall, I actually didn't totally love this team. Like I think it's a fine team, but it's not like I don't feel like amazing about my other positions outside of running back. So that's the part that sort of surprised me with this team is, okay, I'm going zero RB. I should feel really good about the rest of my team. But like I don't feel like this wide receiver room is necessarily awesome. I think they have major upside. Um, maybe I just look at my own teams too critically, but I didn't feel like that amazing about my wide receiver situation, my quarterback situation, my tight end situation. So ultimately, I feel like this one was like, maybe I'd feel better about this team if I had taken an earlier running back. Um, but I think part of what and I think I may have talked about this with JJ. It's something that I've at least thought about is I think the zero running back teams are also just going to look really good later in the summer when we have more information. Because right now you look at these running backs and it's like DJ Giddens probably the RB2, but we don't know that for sure. We don't know the situation for most of these running backs. Like where do they actually fall on the depth chart? I think we'll have a better idea come August. So I think really the best zero RB teams are going to be the ones drafted in August when we have a little bit more information from the teams. Right now, these are all players that I'm taking shots on, but I just think in general, just having that information, we're going to be able to make better zero RB teams in August. But my second team I actually do like better than the first one. So I have Jordan Love, Cam Ward, Sam Darnold at quarterback. Obviously not the best trio, but like I got 3 of them. Jordan Love, I think, could take a step forward this year. I feel pretty good about this quarterback room. Running back, I feel a lot better about this team than the first one. I think Tony Pollard just could be an RB1 from the start. Cam Scatterbu, I think a better bet than Bashal Tutin. Ramondre Stevenson, much better RB3 here. Like I think he could lead the backfield there, at least for the start of the season for the Patriots. So it works better with some of the other bets I'm making on this team. Jalen Wright, again, this could have been Roshan Johnson. I would have loved for this to be Roshan Johnson, but Jalen Wright still has, people were taking him last year, myself included, earlier than where he's going this year. Now Raheem Mostert's gone, an explosive back. Maybe he can turn into something this year. Will Shipley, again, I've gone over. I just like Will Shipley as a pick this year. Marshawn Lloyd, the coaches have talked about wanting to see what he can do in the passing game. Love that on a PPR site like DraftKings. DJ Giddens, again, just likely the RB2 there on the Colts. Who knows if he can get on the field some. But I feel a lot better about this. And I have one fewer running back here, but I feel a lot better about the group, mostly because I think Ramondre Stevenson, this is a really solid pick for my team. Like I just needed somebody who's going to provide me something early on in the early weeks when these guys are maybe not there yet. And I think Ramondre Stevenson provides me that, and has more upside, I think, than obviously than like Miles Sanders. Like Ramondre Stevenson could be a 14. Like you could score some 20-point weeks early on. It's not the likeliest scenario. He is going to be competing there with Travion Henderson, but I think Ramondre Stevenson has a higher floor and a higher ceiling for the early weeks than just about anybody on this team. Maybe outside of DeAndre Swift, but actually I think it's kind of not that far off. Maybe a little bit lower. Wide receivers, I also feel better about. Like I kind of think Malik Neighbors, so I got him at the 112, Puka at the 17. I don't see a huge difference there in terms of the range of outcomes. Now I do have JSN. I don't have until my wide receiver 2 here, as opposed to my wide receiver 3 on the first team. But I still, I think JSN a fine wide receiver 2 here. Ted McMillan, not a bad bet. Could just be targeted a ton there in Carolina. Jalen Waddle could take a step forward. Calvin Ridley, and then my final 2, I just have a couple of rookies in Matthew Golden and Kyle Williams, who wide range of outcomes, but both could be very good. And then at tight end, I have Brock Bowers, so a ton of safety there. I love Bowers and McBride this season. I think are really strong targets, particularly on DraftKings, because they're going to be targeted so much. They could just really separate from the rest of the wide receivers in terms of reception volume. So then I wait until my final 2 picks. I get Jatavion Sanders and Harold Fannin, kind of a wide range of outcomes, home run type picks. But I do have 3 there on a team with Brock Bowers, so I'm okay with those 2. So I like this second team a lot better than the first team. I don't know. Did you agree with me? Let me know if you agree. But I feel better about it. I think in large part because of the Ramondre Stevenson pick, making me feel a little bit safer at running back early on. I still have the mega upside home run picks there. I feel okay about the wide receivers also. Like I think these are all guys that Calvin Ridley was decent last year, could step forward. Jalen Waddle hurt a lot last year, didn't really put it all together, but I still think that is the expectation is that he should be pretty good when he's out there, especially when Tua is healthy. We got the home run picks in the receivers. Obviously, Brock Bowers, you don't really need much else at tight end. So I feel better about the second team than the first team. Let me know if you agree, if you think that I should be drafting. Am I crazy to be drafting 0 RB at this point in the year? Is that something we should really be waiting until August? I don't know, but it's fun to do. These are fun teams to draft, and I will continue to attempt these 0 RB teams on DraftKings. All right, that is going to do it for this video. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you want, I'm going to be putting out some content behind the paywall on the Flannelverse. That is going to be it's $5 per month if you want to join the Flannelverse on YouTube. We've got an eliminator strategy video coming out soon. You can check that out. All right, thanks guys, catch you later.